What's going on, everyone? It's Bails, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Q&A. Got a bit of a roundtable here, which is good, a bit like last week. So joining me, as always, is my co-host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic, is Tim. Mate, how are you?
Great. Well, no, what am I saying? Great. I'm just talking without even thinking. It's been a rough 24 hours for old Timbo. I've been riding the porcelain bus. I don't know what I've got, a bit of food poisoning or a bit of gastro or something along those lines. But, yeah, feeling a bit rough. Feeling better now. I've eaten about a couple of hours ago for the first time in a while. But yeah, been feeling like I've been kicked in the guts several times. So hopefully on the improve now.
Yeah, mate, that doesn't sound too good. But obviously, we missed you on a Sunday night, mate. Definitely better when you are around. But for the listeners, do you want to give people a bit of a rundown of how you went on the weekend? Maybe give it like score, rank, plus, minus.
Oh, shit. Yeah, sure. No, I had a pretty solid week, actually. 1883. I think I was the maybe second or third highest score in the Content Creators Cup. So that climbed me from about, I think what was I, 5'8" or 5'3" or something like that to 2'8". So pretty happy with that as a move. Almost half my ranking, which got me moving in the right direction. And I'm pretty happy with the way the team's looking at the moment. I got the pretty healthy bench. Making good money. Not too many duds. Shaping up pretty strong with the best 22 starting this week, or coming back this week, I should say.
Good stuff, mate. Who would have gotten your plus and minus 3 on the weekend?
By the way, got another win. So that's 3-3 in the Content Creators Cup. After a bit of a rough start, I'm coming back, and I'm up against one half of the Ball Boys this week, mate. Not Mitch, not my my arch rival, but Luke. He's Robin to his Batman. So I've been stirring him up a bit this week as well. He's been sick, looking forward to going off against him. But yeah, plus and negative threes. Oh, Jesus, hang on. I got to think. Last round seems so long ago now. Probably, plus 3's got to go to Brodie Grundy. Been a rough pick for this year because I went the Cherry Grundy combo, so not having gone has hurt me, but feel like I got paid back a little bit last week by having Brodie Grundy. And then, who would be my... probably minus negative 3 to Zach Williams, let's call it. We knew something like that was probably coming at some point in time, and now it's time to hop off. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Good to hear your voice back on one of the videos.
Thanks, mate. No, you guys did it. Yeah, who was it? DC and that's right. It was DC and DT, right? The confusing ones. No, you guys. Yep. Obviously, two fantastic coaches. Yeah, I thought you guys did a great job. I listened back yesterday.
Oh, thanks, mate. Definitely great to get DC and DT Lemon on. But we've got another.
You did a good job, mate. Infinite Wealth thinks you did a good job, mate. You might have a job in radio sales or something like that as well.
Yeah, and as I said, I won't be giving you the financial advice. That will be Tim. So, beautiful. But no, we have got another couple of special guests on to run through this Q&A tonight. So we'll start off with the number one coach from 2023. You'll know him as Wise Ocean Pods. It is Darren, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Feeling pretty okay, I guess. Had a pretty shocking week on the weekend, so trying to see if I can bounce back this week for sure.
Yep. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough week last week. I know people had the rank outside top 10K and they end up moving ranks. So sort of whereabouts, just because we didn't chat you on Sunday, where were you ranked or overall rank, and what was your weekly rank on the weekend?
So I'm just sitting outside the top 4,000 now, so dropped back another about over 1,000 spots on the weekend, and I scored a 1765, so probably about 50 points under par, and my weekly rank was nearly 30K, so it was a shocking week. I haven't seen those numbers in a long time.
Yeah, no, mate, I'm sure you'll bounce back, that's for sure. Yeah. And our other special guest, you will know him from the Free Kick, and almost pretty regular on the Hat Chat. It is Liam, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Bales, and happy to be back on here on the Fanatics. I must say, it is actually uncanny, Darren. I had a 1762, but had a 1765 until Tristan Sherry lost a kick as a late adjustment. So I very much feel your pain. I also had a miserable week.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you ranked at the moment, Liam, overall ranking?
I'm at 8.5K. I had been up over 1.5k spots. So I've dropped a bunch last week. Just everything went wrong pretty much. Like, outside of, I'll shout out to Marcus Windhager for my only pod non-popular player to score over a ton. But I'd traded into Isaac Rankin, and that had been a rank failure. I'd had Noah Anderson score a 69 after seeing a decent amount of non-stoppage around the ground attention from James Jordan. I had Connor Rosie as captain. I had the full gambit of miserable.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a bit of a tough week, mate, but I'm sure you will also bounce back this week. But if you are tuning in live, whether that be on YouTube or X, get questions in. Obviously, we're answering a heap of those now for the next 40 odd or so minutes. So yeah, get your questions in. And if you are watching on YouTube or Twitter, head over to the YouTube and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the video and all that good stuff. We just passed 2,100, so on our way to 3,000. Hopefully by the end of the season would be fantastic. But boys, before we get into some questions, probably a few sort of talking points. So I think we'll start off with the fact that obviously DPPs have come out and people can bring in players in other positions. And I think a few people from what I've seen them is shopping in the forward line this week. So Liam, I'll start off with you because you are the Bombers man. Jai Caldwell is one of those options along with the Jack Macrae. A few people looking at Liam Baker, maybe Lukosius. Obviously, you went for a Rankin last week as well. So just talk me about those forward options and probably start off maybe with Caldwell being the Bombers man.
Yeah, I can speak to Caldwell a little bit, and I think outside of that, I'd say the community is fairly on point with their trepidations elsewhere. I think as much as Caldwell has looked amazing, and I've long been a fan of his work, particularly his hands inside, I can't guarantee that he'll stay in that midfield role, particularly with us knowing that we've got Setterfield still to come back inside the next 2 weeks. Dylan Shield played an excellent an excellent 3 quarters in the VFL on the weekend. And just the potential that Archie Perkins, who should be back in a fortnight as well, just altering the balance slightly. I still think as well that long-term Ben Hobbs as a high draft pick is someone that they'll continue to look to push through the midfield. I can't guarantee week to week that he'll stay in there. This is probably been his best run of scoring whilst at the Bombers. I just don't trust it to hold. And he would have been, if he'd done this in the first 3 weeks of the season, you'd started with him. I think that'd be an excellent spot to be. But I think he's priced above 80 at this point. It's hard to confidently feel like the value is there.
Yeah, he's priced at 757k. So he's still got a break into 47, so still got a little bit of cash, mate. But as you said, a few guys coming back there, but obviously there's a couple of other of those guys in like a Jack Macrae and Liam Baker.
So just for you, just 1 point. So Perkins is listed as only 1 week on the Essendon injury list.
Well, that's Setterfield.
Yeah.
Setterfield
was back for 2 weeks. Yeah.
So, it's even closer. Yeah.
It's just one thing, though. Like, Brad Scott has shown himself to be pretty consistently conservative on return to play timetables.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, a couple of those other options, Liam. Obviously, we've got Jack Macrae, Liam Baker. I'm sure there's like a coach you can throw in there as well. But I think Macrae's probably the one we'll start off with, and then you can maybe talk about the others. Are you preferring those guys over a Jai Caldwell, or sort of where do you sit with sort of all those guys?
I think, I probably prefer Macrae to Caldwell because of the price, that figure he's currently at, and the fact that we know Macrae, even with a less than stellar role, like we saw last year, is a low 90s averaging player. And so priced at below that 80s mark, I think he can still hit that and be a sufficiently valuable player for us to trade in now. I don't think anyone making that trade feels comfortable knowing that we're going to get Jack Macrae, because I don't think that Jack Macrae has been particularly consistent in his own play, setting aside what Bevo might do to that confidence. And then also Bevo has shown a proclivity to just change things on a whim. Now, you can feel a little bit better knowing that he played his best game in a while whilst they had a very convincing win. But we've also been overconfident about what we think Bevo will do in the past. And I believe that at the very least, the share of points that are accrued around the ground are impacted for Macrae are impacted by the return of Libba. So there are definitely arguments on both sides. I'm personally not looking to launch into it this week. I want to see a little bit of consistency before I trade him in.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Darren, your quick thoughts on those forwards. How would you sort of rank like McRae, Caldwell, Baker, and maybe if you've got any other options off the top of your head, how would you rank those guys in terms of your preference?
I definitely think I have McRae at the top, just given that we know how well he can score in the past, and obviously he had a great game on the weekend. His break-even's ripe for the picking at the moment with a break-even of 74 or something like that. I'm also looking at picking him up this week, so gives you a bit of indication. The only concern really for McRae is he played that sort of Sanders role that he's been playing for a lot. We saw obviously Sanders be the sub. So what happens when Sanders comes back in? Does he then slot back into that normal half forward role and push into the stoppages, or does then McRae get pushed out to the wing? So I would prefer if I could watch it for another week, but I personally don't have the cash to get anyone sort of in the better realm. I could go down to a Taylor Adams, but he comes with his own sort of risks. But in terms of ranking those three, I definitely have McRae number one. Then probably Baker, just for the longevity of his role. He should be in that role for probably at least for another month until we sort of get those other guys back. Obviously, we got Hopper back this week, but Taranto's not due back for another 6 to 8 weeks. And Presti is another 2 weeks away. So you hope for at least you get 2 weeks out of him. That is going to be some good trading. Whereas I think with Caldwell, like we've said off the top, it's he's only probably got 2 more weeks until the Setterfields and Perkins are back, who have been shown to be the preferred midfield mix. So I think Caldwell gets pushed out pretty easily. So, and this is a price difference as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's about it. Yes, sorry,
Bales, you mentioned Jack Lukosius as well. I think that you'd be feeling a little less comfortable having seen him be thrown forward in the fourth quarter during the weekend and have him, to be honest, like I think there's definitely a world where he looks good at times, and also he's an incredible kicker of the football. He just makes some really poor choices with it, or takes a little too long. So I can't imagine that Dimmer is set in that role. And another thought, like just on Richmond, I think one factor in their favour is their bye round, being that round 15 bye. I know that a lot of people are jam-packed with round 12s in their forward line at the moment. I like that as a factor. And then another injured player that we didn't talk about was Jack Ross. So there's definitely some space in there for him. I think you could also say that Shea Bolton, if you like what you've seen from Richmond scoring from those top end players so far, Shea Bolton has also been on an absolute tear outside of, I think, the game in round 2 where he was miserable. So I think you could definitely take a stab in that. I like that bye round, and I like the fact that you're picking probably their 2 most skilled players at the moment.
Yeah,
and I'm going to say that more than Dusty.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about it. I think Jack McRae's also got that round 15 bye as well, so that sort of goes in his favour there as well. But we will move on to the next.
No. We're not moving on. We're not moving on.
All right. Okay. All right, Tim.
I don't know if it's the drugs talking or, but I feel like I'm going to pull a bit of a Rids.
Let's just make clear. It is medication you're taking because you're sick.
Yes, that's right, mate. That's the drugs. Drugs I'm referring to. Now, look, I want to come at this conversation from a slightly different direction, right? And what I want to talk about is the rookies that we've got available in the forward line. Now, I realise, and by the way, I'm not saying that this is the right way to approach it. I just want to throw a different perspective out there to get us thinking about things from a different angle. So, look, we now know that Harley Reid's going to be rested, right? But take this week out of consideration. I'm sure we've got coverage there with like a Garcia or a Darcy Wilson or something along those lines. We could probably patch it up enough, right? But it's probably pretty common that people have also got an Ollie Dempsey in their forward line, and there may even be a lot of coaches out there that now have a Riley Sanders. Okay, and look, I mean, this certainly applies to me anyway. And when I look at the rookie the numbers that those rookies can produce, I think Harley Reid's capable of about an 80 at the moment. Ollie Dempsey, maybe not quite as much, maybe a 70, but he's doing pretty well. And once again, when you take out the sub games that Riley Sanders has played, he's probably around about an 80 player as well. Now, I'm kind of thinking that at where they're priced at in that kind of 500 mark, I'd much prefer to be running those 3 rookies on field. I mean, of course, we want to have a Heaney, we want to have a Sam Flanders, we've probably got a Tom Powell, maybe we've even got a Zach Fisher kind of maybe, filling out that forward line at the moment. And I just kind of can't believe that as a community, a lot of what we're talking about at the moment is players like Jai Caldwell and Jack McRae and Shai Bolton. And like, for me, it just feels like these are like really risky picks at this stage of the game. And look, I mean, if we look at it from a draft perspective as well, when we know we don't have good options in a particular line, you fade those kind of players. And I really think that that's maybe what we should be looking at doing at this stage of the season. And we should be looking to maybe get more aggressive upgrades to these players that are now dropped in price. I mean, obviously, someone like a Nick Dacos is a prime example, but there's plenty of other examples in there, like a Goulden from, his price. Players that are in that kind of 900, maybe to 950 mark. There's a number of them. And look, you might have to do more of an aggressive trade, like maybe getting off a Zach Fisher, maybe getting off a Riley Bonner, or players like that to do that. But I think that, like, if we look back on past years, they are proven to be by far the better trades to be making at this stage of the year. So I'm just, like I said, I don't know that I'm calling it right. I mean, Darren, you got a Hilux, I don't, but I kind of wanted to throw this out there, and it just does surprise me how much of the conversation is being dominated by these players. I mean, it was also the same last week. We were talking. I mean, let's have a look at those players we were talking about last week. Rankin, Rochelle. I mean, Rankin was one of the top. I mean, how did he go on the weekend? Who was the other guy?
Different price point though. It's all below. Once you get above 700k, sorry, I think you start to be asking different questions. You're asking questions: are you holding them through to the end of the year, versus are you holding them through to their buy? Which I think is a very different play to be making. So
sure, but we've seen one game out of Jack McRae, and we don't know what the hell's going to go on there.
I agree.
And with the risks that we've got coming with Caldwell, neither of these players look like they're going to be keepers or anywhere close to that. I mean, Jack McRae, anything could happen inside of next week, and Caldwell could be out of the side out of your fantasy side in 2 weeks.
I've got one take to have, and I think it's like I think the Harley Reid being out this week is a perfect example. As much as we think he can score 70s and 80s at the moment, he is a first year player, and they've made very clear up front they're going to rest him. Ollie Dempsey plays for the team that is most likely to drop and rest players in the AFL in Geelong, and also has some definitely difficult matchups coming up after his game against Melbourne. Got Port Adelaide, Gold Coast, Richmond and Sydney, which are all bad matchups for wings. And I don't necessarily feel confident fielding him each and every week, kind of in an area where if you're doing that, you're probably fielding two. Like you're probably fielding two forwards, and you're not getting a chance to loop and have a look at two. So I agree that I'm not enamored by a lot of the forward options this week. I'd actually probably I'd feel best looking at some of the Richmond options if it weren't for the fact that they were playing on tomorrow, and then you're locked out. So I think that's an incredibly risky thing to do. But I do think that there's definitely a world where you have to ask, like, we can't afford to be overconfident in these forwards for the very reason that next week it could be Darcy Wilson has a rest after another big loss for St Kilda, and Ollie Dempsey cops a rest because he plays against the toughest wing matchup in the comp probably for running, and that's Blake Acres. We can't afford to be overconfident in these rookies either.
Yeah, it's all good points that we're raising, I think, and it is something that people got to consider when they're bringing in these forwards. But for anyone that did miss it, because I missed it, that was sort of you guys saying that was sort of, I don't just clicked onto it, that yes, Harley Reid is going to be managed this week per Tom Morris there. So that'll be interesting. I guess that will be a loop that we'll actually be able to use this week because West Coast.
I will take another second, Bails. Oh my God, how freaking good was that freaking kid? I wasn't on the train. I was hesitant. I was a little bit like maybe we should consider trading for 2 top 10 picks, but I'm all in, baby.
Yeah, well, no, he's good.
He looked incredible.
Yeah, and he plays
incredible.
the second to last game as well. And being a mid forward, it's very, very handy for looping this week. So, yeah, that will be doing that. And then I did see Power Prawn Star asked, is Harley Reid being managed? But also about is Hayden Young all good? Yes, he is. Ryan Daniels did come out and say that he's all good. And Hayden Young hasn't even been listed on the injury report. So, so he is looking like he'll be fine and ready to go. So, but yeah, we'll get into the questions now, and we'll see what the people are asking. So as I said before, if you guys are tuning in live on Twitter or YouTube, send your questions through and we'll answer those as we go through them. So Jessup's got the first question, Darren. Goulden or Walsh? This is exactly what I was looking at last week, and I went Goulden. What are you looking at, Goulden or Walsh?
Oh, it's the exact same thing as you said last week. I'm still probably in the Goulden camp. I think he probably has the highest ceiling. I think the run is very similar in terms of they're both not great, but yeah, we know what Goulden can do. He's just been sort of burnt by his teammates at the moment where they're not giving him the ball as much as what we've seen in the past. But maybe with your likes of Parker coming back in and Adams in the middle a bit more, they can start using their outside ball and try and use that speed. Whereas I've currently got Heaney in there who's currently providing plenty of speed at the moment. So, but yeah, I definitely think Goulden is the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they both exhibit pretty similar upsides and downsides. And the thing that pushes me over is Errol Goulden doesn't have a bad back injury. I think that is a genuine consideration you've got to have. Like Sam Walsh did this last year, pumped out 400s or whatever it was, 400 or 500s in a row after he came from a back injury, and then kind of broke down again. And he's tried to do that rebuild during the season this year. I think you maybe not a massive red flag, but it's certainly an orange flag.
Yeah, no, definitely something to consider there. But, Darren, I guess we can cast you've been the Hawks man with Sydney playing Hawthorn this week. We haven't really seen Finn tag too heavy over the last couple of weeks. Do you expect that to continue in him playing a bit more of like a forward role and maybe plays sort of on a Blakey but doesn't really tag him? Is that what you expect, or could you see him going to a Goulden or even a Heaney or something like that?
It's a tough one because, like I said, he's not tagging currently at the moment. He's sort of just playing like a run with role, and he's actually being an accountable forward. So he's actually kicking goals and isn't just locking them down as we've seen in the past. So I think that it will start out as he will play as just a normal forward, and if things really go pear-shaped and we need to close down someone, then that's possibly the case. I think it's just depending on who gets off the chain. It could be anyone, really. There's so many good players at Sydney. It could be any one of those guys that he could just go into the stoppages and clamp a Heaney if he wanted to, or run on the wing with Goulden. It's hard to really say. I haven't heard anything, and I don't suspect they're going to start on anyone. It's just, like I said, it'll be depending on who gets off the chain a little bit. Yeah.
Part of me is thinking if they're not going to tag Dacos too heavily and not going to tag Sheasel too heavily, that they're not really going to be tagging really anyone too heavy until something changes.
What games has he tagged in? Has he really done any full-on lockdown roles?
I thought there was
one.
It's like been a quarter or yeah.
Been here and there. Like I would still say that he put some time and effort into Sheasel. It's just not like what we attribute tagging roles last year. They're like I'm not. It just so happens that like you're in my zone, or for these 5 minutes, like we've just decided you're not getting any transition ball. I'm going to run with you, and then otherwise it's just like he's just a good defensive forward in that he has the tank to keep sprinting, and so quite often makes up that ground. So that Sheasel last week, but then the week before it was Sam Flanders. He was still kind of running with him. It just wasn't a full-on hard tag.
Yeah, well, so that to me is sounding like good news for Errol Goulden this week, that he might not play him unless Goulden starts going bananas. But at that point, he might be on a good enough score anyway. Jim's got this next question, Liam, for you. His trades this week, he's looking at Zach Williams and Luke Jackson to Errol Goulden and Jack McRae. Thoughts on those? And he also asked, out of every premium on the game, who would you target first? He's already got Sheasel, Butters, Bont, Steele, Flanders, Dacos. So I guess that probably goes hand in hand. Do you like the Goulden and McRae ins? And if not, would there be someone else maybe you'd consider?
So, like, it's obviously difficult because I think we've kind of discussed, like, I'm not, as much as I understand why McRae is a target this week, I'm not massively hot on McRae. I can definitely see why you'd want to target Goulden. I think that's absolutely fine. I think the matchup against Hawthorn this week, if Sydney do what to Gold Coast, did to Gold Coast in transition and just killed them for that entire game, and then you think about what Gold Coast did to Hawthorn in transition and absolutely annihilated them, I think there's every reason to believe that the ceiling score is there. My question is Luke Jackson your absolute number one biggest concern if you've got other rookies that you could be trying to take off field, or there are other bottom price players that you could be looking to bring in? So if you've not got Garcia, I would say he's a bigger priority for you this week. And as much as I think Luke Jackson absolutely sucked last week, I think that's probably not what the role they had destined for him when the game started. The injury to Jaiamis really
was a
caused
tough
big issue
matchup
for them. That made it really difficult because they had to sit him deep forward, or that would force Josh Tracy to sit really deep forward, and he's looked far better roaming higher up the ground in the last few games than he's ever looked sitting as the deepest forward. And I think that really impacted him. I would be prioritising some rookie upgrades before I'd be trading out Luke Jackson.
Yeah, I think I agree with that as well. Power Problem starts putting a super chat. If you do want your question 100% guaranteed to be answered, then feel free to put in a super chat. But we appreciate everyone tuning in regardless. And as long as you like and subscribe, that's all we would appreciate you doing. But Power Problem starts got this one. First trade. Actually, I'll go to Tim for this one. He's ducked out for a second, but he's back. First trade, Tim. Jackson to McRae. Doesn't have Heaney. So does he have to go and get Heaney, or are you happy to settle for McRae? That's the first part of the question. So maybe answer that one first, and we'll go to the second part.
I mean, this is a little bit what Liam was talking about just before. Seems very, very sideways.
Can you pay it for Heaney? Could you?
And then I don't know that. No, I don't like. I'm not sure that I like any of that. Heaney's top priced. What is he priced at the moment? Let's have a look. He is priced at 109. We've got Luke Parker coming back in. We've got Taylor Adams now in. I'm not sure that you really want to be paying full price for any player at this point of the season. What we've kind of been waiting for is these other players to come down in price. And I think in particular that, we should be focusing on those kind of players, or a bit like what Liam said, focusing on a rookie upgrade. I'm not sure that I like any part of that.
Yeah. And the second part of his question was his second trade. He's looking at going one of Gavin, Houston, Yo, or Bonner to Dacos. And he has 165K in the bank. So I think for you, it's probably going to be a Bonner out to Dacos. But are you happy to make that move?
Sorry, run through those players again.
So Gavin, Houston, Yo, and Bonner. So you've got to go one of those two Dacos. Are you happy to pull that trade?
Look, I do really like the Dacos trade in this week. I haven't really heard much being said about the fact that it's an Anzac Day game. I don't know if that's obvious, but I just think a big game with a medal on the line, Dacos is going to go absolutely freaking spare.
Did score 140 last year.
And look, I don't think he's been in the best. Well, Collingwood weren't in the best form to begin the year. He's now priced under 900. Once again, what's he freaking priced at? Here's what I've noticed in my backline, right? Bringing Dacos in this week. I know this probably doesn't mean a huge amount, right? But bringing Dacos in this week means I'm bringing him in at D4. Martin, Whitfield, and Sheasel are all ahead of him, and I think if I'm bringing in a D1/D2. But yet he's priced at a D4 for me. I think that seems like a very, very good trading.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he is a good trading. I'm just I thought.
Once again, I wasn't too sure about the first part of his question. And look, I'm not. I wouldn't mind. Bonner doesn't have a great matchup this week, but he does have two good matchups the week after. I don't think it's really time to get off him yet, but if it's about the trade on the other end, I don't mind. I don't think there's a problem going early, but I'm not. Yeah, the first part of the question confused me, so I think maybe have a look around and see what else you can do.
Yeah. I'm definitely all for getting off of Luke Jackson, but that's just my thoughts with that one.
Yeah, look, we were talking about this today. Look, I was considering maybe getting off a Zach Fisher, but I think I'd get off a Luke Jackson before a Zach Fisher, and once again, that gives me an upgrade to like a Nick Dacos, not a Jack McRae or a Caldwell, and that seems like a much better, smarter move for my
Luke
team.
Jackson's break-even is 121. What do we realistically expect him to score this week?
So I actually did this exercise today. I went and pulled out his stats without stats from DFS Australia. By the way, that's probably the best fantasy website I know for stats. So, people should go and check it out. But I went through and found the without section. Put in Luke Jackson, looked down to where Darcy was playing, and his average for the entirety of 2023 without Darcy was 71. Now that's lower than probably what I expected. I thought he would be maybe an 80 guy or something like that. But, with that high break even, once again, I mean, Zach Fisher can probably do a 71, and he's priced 100 grand cheaper.
Not going to lose 50K as well.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the potential for Sheasel to move in the midfield, Zach Fisher to get a bit more ball, and potentially him to score even higher. So, yeah, I think I'm off Luke Jackson this week, and I'll be keeping Zach Fisher.
Yeah. Darren, next question here comes from Jack Rands. He said, is Stewart or Jackson the priority trade out, and would you be going to Flanders with DPP either way? So I think the Flanders one, I think we're all going to agree is if you don't have him, he's a very, very good target to jump on. But I guess, where do you sort of have the Stewart in sort of with him and Jackson in terms of who would you trade it? Because obviously Stewart's out this week, but even before that, do you think he was really performing at a top? Like, he had one good game against the Crows where he actually had a Crows Guernsey on that night. I'm convinced he was their 23rd player that night. So I haven't been overly convinced with him. So would you be trading him out before Jackson?
In my current list, I have Stewart as a priority trade out just because, yes, you're correct. He hasn't been the guy that we sort of expected all season. He's been sort of 80 guy. He hasn't been doing the scores that you sort of foreseen for him, and he's sort of dropping in price now. So I think he has to go. But I think not to hide behind the whole, it's depending on your structure. If you need someone to, another score on field, so Stewart's obviously not going to score this week. He's out with concussion. But Jackson's still going to score for you this week. So if you need that score on field, then you trade Stewart. But if you don't, then I think getting off Stewart is the best priority you can do.
Yeah, I think the only thing you could do is if you've got a Blake Howes on the bench, you could maybe loop him tomorrow and see if how he goes. And if he popped a better score, you can loop him on. You can trade Jackson. But yeah, I'd agree. I think that Stewart would be the one to go.
I think that's a good plan. I think a lot of us have a red dot rookie as sitting in a sort of D8 with a pink or a reed at the moment, so that's a perfectly viable option.
Yeah. Corey's got this question, Tim. I'm keen to hear your thoughts. He said, who's the better option, Sam Walsh or Jordan Dawson?
Oh, okay. Price. What price is Dawson at?
So the price for both of those. So Sam Walsh is at 911K and Jordan Dawson's now at 951.
951.
His break even was 146. Now it's back down to 107 this week.
Look, I would then say Errol Goulden. No, he wasn't one of the options, right? But he's in that price range. Look, I get the question though, right? The question is, essentially the way I hear it is, is it time to jump on Jordan Dawson? And personally, I'd want to wait and see what happens with Matt Crouch back in the side next week. It could have been just the case that he popped that big score because he was, just getting more centre bounce attendances. But I also totally understand the concern around Sam Walsh. Like I got on him the other week because I could afford him, and I thought he was, in terms of being like someone that's close to being the top, I kind of generally gun for those top 10, 12 to 14 midfielders. I thought he was in that range, so I was happy to go with him and take the injury risk. But, Liam was saying before about the back injury, and I am concerned about how he goes. And not so much the back injury, it's more so the lack of preseason. Which I think is what, kind of equates to, having a 4 or 5 game run and going well, but then you start to drop off. That's more so what I'm concerned about with him. So that being the case, I'd be looking at other players. Once again, if you haven't got Nick Dacos, I think he would be the number one option this week. I think an Errol Goulden is another fantastic option this week. And there might even be another couple of options in that kind of price range you could look at. Darren, what do you reckon?
I want to throw Connor Rosie's name into that. I think,
Yep.
I think
Yeah,
his
I
run
like it.
is great to come up. He's 6K cheaper than Dawson.
Round
And
13
all the
buy.
uncertainty around, that's true. And the uncertainty around Jordan's role is just too much. It's too much for me to jump straight onto that. I need to see it again for one more week with Crouch back in the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I want to see
Beautiful.
Dawson for another week as well. But actually, I'll just get Liam's quick thoughts. Being the Essendon man and being the fact that Dawson was just against Essendon, what do you make of Dawson's game?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of different thoughts on this one. I'd say that the biggest thing is I don't think it was the extra CBAs that helped him. Like, obviously, him not sitting forward, that obviously helps to score more than whatever it was, 60 against Carlton. The big thing was his work inside D50. He went back, took a kick in, which when he had that massive set of pop scores mid last year, he was covering the ground exceptionally. He was taking contested marks, and there's just been a far less of that this year. And I think that's in part because of Crouch. But I just think that the emergence of the kind of more run and gun style we're seeing from Mitch Hinge means that Dawson feels like at times he's being passed over. Now, I still think that he's potentially value, given his low break even and the fact that he is, capable of averaging 115. I think that I'm going to wait a little bit. I don't see it as someone that's going to ruin my season just yet if I don't have him. I think that there's a period kind of, round 11, round 12 will be the time that I'm looking to bring in Jordan Dawson. Because I do think that the run for, I've already got Rosie, but I'm thinking about in the next few weeks, like, how do I bring in, some of the Melbourne mids because they're super cheap? How do I bring in Butters and how do I bring in Dacos? So I'm just trying to marry all those things up. I think there's some excellent runs there and there's going to be some insane value. And I think Jordan Dawson can wait.
Yeah, and I think the other mid that I like as well, so dropping in price is Caleb Sarong, who's got Richmond next week, so you could go as early as next week. He's got a break even in 144 or something like that. And as I said, that good buy, pretty good run coming up as well. Him and Rosie are two, I think, targets that we're going to have to be looking at because they've got that really good buy, and they could be guys you jump on in round 10, 11, or 12 because they've got that buy, and it's fine. You won't be missing too many guys in there. So moving on to the next question. A lot of people actually asking about these mid primos or forwards. So here's one from Oscar. So Tim, he's asking, should he keep Riley Sanders or are you happy to jump off?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I don't actually have an answer. I mean, I am keeping him. Like I said, because I kind of tend to like someone like him in the forward line over some of these kind of more expensive options that we're looking at. And I know it's a balance, and like I said, I certainly don't have all the answers, but like I said, I do feel like with a Harley Reid, a Ollie Dempsey, a Riley Sanders, maybe we can afford to have two of those on field. And use that money to boost our midfield. So, I mean, I think most people will probably find that defence is looking pretty solid right now, right, with DPPs and with some of the value options we've had. I mean, I could probably say that my defence is finished, and I mean, I've got Sheasel, Whitfield, Martin, Dacos, Young, and Yo. I mean, that's subject to Yo's injury, staying fit, but he's looking pretty good right now. That can mean I'm basically done with my defence. And right as we're having a lot of these midfielders, which are obviously the players that score the most in our game, now dropping in price. And, like I said, we've been able to pick up some of these players for under $900,000, which is, priced under 100 effectively. I just think we want to be chasing that value. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Corey Blackledge put in a super chat as well. Thank you very much for that, mate. He says, already have Rosie and Goulden, has the round 12 buy. I do like him, but have two new round 12 players. And that is another good point, actually, that you raised, Corey, as well, is that when you are looking at these midfield primos, mate, this is probably where your premiums, you do start looking at your buy structure a little bit. I guess you probably don't completely rule out players, but rookies and that you're bringing in the best option. If they've got that buy, then that's what happens. But yeah, premiums, if you've got too many guys in a buy, like I went Goulden last week because I didn't have Tom Green. Whereas if you've already got a Tom Green, Corey, or you've got another midfielder in your on the rent to a buy, then yeah, that's definitely a plane you might not be able to get in, and Errol Goulden have to wait till after their buy. So the next question is from Marco. He actually is asking Dawson or Bont, and he's also saying or Zorko. So Liam, is there one that you like out of those three? Maybe you can talk about Bont and Zorko because we haven't actually discussed them so far.
Yeah, that's a real tough combo. I don't think anything I'm going to say is going to be new about Dane Zorko. I think we all know why there's some trepidation out there. The man is 35. You can't talk about Dane Zorko without mentioning how old he is, and the fact that he's got hamstrings and soft tissue made of paper mache. So I think I don't have the appetite for that, given how expensive he is. I think that's an extreme risk, and I don't think it's worthwhile taking. At least for me, given I know I know that my team is going to have other holes in it, I don't want to have to be patching for Dane Zorko's injury. Bond versus Dawson, I think, is really interesting. I think they've both got round 15 buys, which I like just a little bit below the Sarong, Freo and Port buy in round 13.
Yeah.
I personally think that they both come with a degree of risk. I think I like more of what I've seen from Bont this year than what I've seen from Dawson. I think the fact that, as much as they're both sides that are probably not as winning as much as we're expecting, I'm seeing more games that show what I expect the coach would want from Western Bulldogs than I see from Adelaide, which speaks to the likelihood that that role is going to shift constantly is less likely. So I think I personally preferred Bont just by that little bit more, just for that reason predominantly.
Yeah, as dogs going, Buntu in the background. I own both, and both have been definitely hard watches, particularly that week where they both went 53 and 60. That was great. But I prefer Bont as well. I just think that role is a bit more solidified in for the Dogs. I know Bevo's there, but Bont I think is a little bit different. Bont's not going to get affected by Bevo, touch wood, because we know Bevo can affect anyone. Because the other thing as well, which I was actually going to mention when we talk about McRae, you're not only trading in Jack McRae, you are essentially trading in Bevo into your side, because then you've got to factor
as an assistant coach.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you definitely want to steer clear as much if you can as with him. So Big Boy 1010 says, do you reckon it's too late to grab Flanders? I'm going to say definitely not. It is definitely still a valuable play. He's got West Coast this week, so could put up a good score there.
I'd temper expectations a little bit on what Flanders will score this week.
Yeah, mate. Eagles are a tough matchup now. All right, we're premiership favourites.
Okay, they're in top four. Yeah,
it's Tim. It's really tough for me to square with what you've just said with what I'm about to say, which is when you play West Coast, the ball's not often in your defence, so it's hard to score well.
Fine, yeah, right. Look, we had two good weeks. I'm on a high.
There've been some great performances, and I think that they're a slightly more improved side than we saw at the back end or the middle of last year. But I wouldn't expect as many points maybe as if it was St Kilda. That's what I think people assume West Coast are for defenders and for a lot of positions, and quite often they're just a bit below that because there aren't as many contests, because the ball just kind of flies around because the biggest problem for West Coast for a while has been the quality of their defence, both through the midfield and in their defensive 50.
Yeah. Rids is in the chat as well. Good work, Tim. Love the Rids impersonation, obviously with the just the audio there. Liam's one of my favourite content guys to listen to. Very knowledgeable, and the way he articulates his points is brilliant. So there you go, Liam. And he said,
"Thanks, Rids."
And he's like, "Have a shave, Bales, mate." I literally trimmed it the other day, so. Thanks, Rich, for jumping in the chat there. Simon Sats got this one, Darren. Should we be considering Brad Hill as an option for our forward line? Has looked very good the last 3 weeks. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't do it. I've said in my videos, he's just too volatile for me. Obviously, he plays that wing role. And we've seen it in the past where he can have big scores and has been a little bit more consistent than what we've seen in the past. Obviously, I think he's gone back-to-back 3 times in a row now, close to it. But I just wasn't sure, can't really identify what the role change is for him, so why he's scoring so well. So we saw, what's his name? Dersma, who was a pretty popular pick last week as well. He was obviously popular to bring in, and we saw him drop a 50. So that's just what wingers can do, right? So I mean,
Look at
playing
Musmo.
pretty top. Yeah, exactly. He's been a terrible trade, talk, but he was at nearly 800k. It's a lot to pay for someone who could easily drop a sort of 50
who's already
point.
scored a 50, who's already scored a 40 this year.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I just couldn't do it. I think there's plenty of other value options that could push very similar numbers to him.
Yeah.
And have a better.
And just to add something in Bales, I actually think that Brad Hill's probably a little bit better than a bunch of wingers, and it's part of the reason why he actually has forward status is that he covers so much ground because he's one of the best endurance runners. And that St Kilda team, I'd just say in the last month, have looked to use him more of an outlet, and he's probably not had to spend as much time on a defined wing. He gets to cover most of the mid portion of the ground, and they are definitely a high fantasy scoring team as a result, and he gets the benefit from that. The downside is Mason Wood's soon to return, as is Liam Henry, both in the next month, and them both returning will put a cap on his scoring, because I think long term Liam Henry is the player they want to replace Brad Hill. Brad Hill being over 30 at this point, and then Mason Wood was the darling this time last year, and he would have been in more sides if it weren't for the fact that he was a pure mid only. So I think wings at St Kilda can score well. We've seen that before. Brad Hill is on a bit of a tear at the moment because he doesn't really have any competition for his role, and he's got elite endurance. But I wouldn't trust that scoring to last more than a month, if that.
Yeah, well, obviously, good point you raised with Henry and Wood potentially back soon is that Darcy Wilson as well has been playing a bit more on a wing, so that may affect his scoring as well. I think he might go for us in a few weeks anyway, but that is just something to keep in mind moving forward. Matt's got this question for you, Tim. He said, he's doing Zach Williams to Errol Goulden. That's one trade that he's saying he's doing. He said, would you go Stewart to Dacos, or would you go Dempsey up to McRae? So are you going the rookie up, keeping Stewart, or are you going Stewart across to Dacos?
Jesus. I mean, my first gut instinct is, go Stewart to Dacos. Although I must admit, I don't normally like that kind of trade. But I think we can probably get away with it because I just don't. I mean, we obviously we're not going to call Stewart a top six, but I mean, normally they don't need to be top six to be able to hold on to him. But he's probably not even top 10 at the moment either. So I think that's how you can get away with that one. What was the other option? Was it It was going Dempsey up to. Yeah, no, I don't like that.
See, I like McRae, but I probably would still do Stewart to Dacos. But Liam, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think I'd be going Stewart to Dacos because I think that, and it might be a bit, to borrow a line, it is a bit team dependent, I think, on this one by how many rookies you are running on field in your forward line. So if you're sitting in a situation where you've got two or maybe even three that you're trying to roll through and you don't have a Riley Garcia yet, for example, I would be looking to find a way to get a forward on field, because trying to rely on Dempsey and having no Harley Reid, and maybe you haven't got a great set of options in your forward line, that might be a reason why I prioritise it. But yeah, I'm with Guesty on this one. I'm all for. I think Stewart, with the arrival of Max Holmes, if he was what we were expecting to be a 99 to 100 guy, I think he's probably closer to 92, 93. And I think we all know Dacos is a 107 to 110 guy when Collingwood are humming, and he had 69, 70 points in the second half last week. So I think we all know that he has, maybe 15, 20 points upside on what Stewart might average for the rest of the year. So that's why I'm all for it.
Yeah. Figliameno has got this question, Liam. He said he's looking at Merritt and Treloar as two options. So another two players we haven't talked about. So Treloar being an interesting one because he's killing it at the moment, but I guess there's still that risk. And I guess Zach Merritt obviously been the Bombers man. He didn't have too many CBAs in the second half. I think he only had 4 and he had 0 in the last quarter. So are you keen on either of these options, or are you looking at others?
I would be looking elsewhere outside of Zach Merritt. Just given his price, I just don't think that's what we're doing at this point in the season. I think we're looking to find a bit more value. As for Treloar, he's more expensive at this point than Tom Green, Jordan Dawson, Marcus Bontempelli, and Errol Goulden. I think if he's cheaper than all of those players, I think you can create a case for him being an interesting pod and someone we know that can score highly. But he comes with injury risk, and compared to all those players that we know can average well in excess of 110, have done it all in the last year effectively, I wouldn't be going Treloar over those options.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you said, Bont's cheaper, and I guess he's probably looking with Treloar with the run because Dogs have got a good three coming with Freo, Hawthorn, and Richmond, so that's a good run. But yeah, if you're looking at someone, as you said, there's a plethora of other names I think I'd rather go to. I think Treloar's a guy post the buys. If you're still doing this luxury season, you can look to maybe flip for some matchups and stuff like that. That's probably where I'm looking at with him. We'll go a few more here. We'll go for another 5 minutes or so, then we'll wrap up. Well, Mark, see, I'll just say this is to go a good trading toe. I could never get to go in my side. I don't know if anyone here, I'm seeing Darren shaking the head. Don't know about Liam or Tim. I can't see Tim's head.
It's fascinating to look at because he's so cheap. But he was cheaper a couple of weeks ago, and he's never gone above, 90 average before?
Yeah. His highest was like 98, I believe. 89, sorry. 89.
Yeah, I just think you'd have to ask yourself, like, even if you are buying him, you're really buying a midfielder as someone that is a priority trade out, maybe in 7 weeks, based on the cadence that we usually take, where we're trying to, make sure we trade in players that can get with a shouting chance at the top 10, 15 in their line, particularly for midfield.
Yeah. Next question here, Raf Bud, Tim, he's asking thoughts on Took, and he's saying particularly over maybe a Sam Walsh. So what are your thoughts on Took as an option?
Yeah, we were talking about Took today. So,
I guess the one thing I would flag is that he does have a couple of games up at TIO coming up as well. And we did see that it's not really, you think it might be a good thing for a guy like Took with tackles, but it didn't really seem to benefit anyone at the Gold Coast last year from what I recall. So
I think where we got to about it is, look, he's an option, but at $865, when you've got Dacos only 20 grand more expensive, ideally, I think that's where you want to be going. It's also been a little bit concerning the way he's kind of performed so far this year. I'm not sure that he's kind of that 110 guy that we kind of thought he might have been. There's obviously been a bit going on in there with Anderson, and Rao's obviously having a good year so far as well. So, look, it doesn't really stand out to me as an option, but I think the reason why we were considering it for you, Bails, is because you couldn't afford Dacos. Is that right? You're a bit short.
Thanks, mate. Yep. Yes, that ain't short. So, yeah. We're not going to talk about that one. I could have gone Walsh last week, could have afforded it. But then again, if Massimo didn't get subbed out, if Dacos didn't have a big last quarter, but anyway.
Or if you hadn't picked Massimo in the first place.
This would be a good
different.
Yeah.
What about the boys? What do you think about Took?
He's on my watch list big time because he's doing this cadence at the moment, which is good quarter, bad quarter, good quarter, bad quarter. And then in a bunch of fourth quarters, he's had extra time off the ground. I think that I've been watching Gold Coast more in their midfield specifically at the moment because I was watching a lot the week before I brought in Noah Anderson and obviously watched intently each of the last 2 weeks. He still looks good, but I do agree that he's uber sealing his cap now by the fact that Matt Rao can now spread more than 2 meters from the stoppage. And that probably makes it a little bit difficult for him to have those 130s, those 140s. Rao is also a very prominent tackler in a way that he probably wasn't nearly as consistent a couple of years ago when Took was the highest scoring player in the game. So he's definitely on my watch list still because I think we all know that he can score really, really well. And if he does drop a couple of bad scores, I don't want to over egg the influence of TIO games. I think we've quite often seen that most of the time the average that you have at a game at a ground is more impacted by the opposition than the ground itself. And particularly for a player that tackles well, who does take marks in transition and kicks a lot, I don't think I'm too worried about the location. I'm more worried about the balance alongside Took and Noah.
Yeah, no, very good point there. Joel's got this question. Hey, lads, is D'Ambrosio? Yep, okay, just trade him out. I'm saying yes to the question already. No,
Go on, get him out of here.
Yeah, Darren, this one's for you, mate. Hey, lads, is D'Ambrosio to merit and Caulfield to a rookie good trades with 100K left, or are there options other than Merritt currently have Bont, Dawson, Rosie, and Crouch in your side? So I think we did say that I think Merritt's probably not the guy you're looking at. So obviously with Bont, Dawson, Rosie, and Crouch in your side, is there one that you like probably the most there that you'd be bringing in?
So it was Massimo to pretty much any midfielder you're looking for, and then Caulfield to any sort of rookie, I guess, or sort of 200K. Like I said, sort of off the top, I think there's plenty of value in that sort of 900K range. So if you don't have a Rosie, get a Rosie. If you don't have a Butters, then he's the exact same. Great run. You could, like we just spoke about, we could go Took, you can go Walsh. There's so many other guys. I probably wouldn't. Yeah, Golden. I wouldn't go to the top, even though he does have a great run. He is coming down in price now, so you probably would be able to pick him up in say a couple of weeks a lot cheaper because he has a break even of 138. But yeah, I definitely think that's the best way to do it. I know there's not a whole lot of rookies this week because there's a bit of an issue if you don't already had a Garcia as such. But yeah, I'd definitely be looking to grab one of those guys rather than a Merritt.
Yeah, cool.
I agree. I think Butters and Goulden would be my number one, number two targets.
Yeah. We've got two more questions here as well. Maltesian's got this one, Liam. He said, do I really have to trade Stewart? I've already got Dacos and don't lose any money by holding him. I really need to add a midfielder and I've got plenty of rookies to upgrade. So I guess this is, could you hold Stewart and upgrade those rookies? I guess if you've got too many. And probably how many rookies is too many? Is it like anything over 6? Is that probably what
I'd say over 6. Over 6 is too many. At 6, I think you can craft a pretty good team out of it. I think 4 to 5 is you're feeling very comfortable and that you'll be able to find the best combination. I think you can hold Stewart if you'd like. I don't like. I think people are disappointed, and for someone like me, he's a very clear traded option because I don't have Dacos, and I see that as being now's the time to get that going. If you've already got that. And we do have this sense that our defensive lines, for the most part, are complete. The question then becomes like, you need to ask yourself like, how many points am I losing on field this week by not trading him? And if I can upgrade 2 rookies or I can get a rookie off field to a better option in your midfielder and your forward line, if you haven't got one of those mid-priced options, then I think you go with that. You're not. I don't think like Stewart is oh my God, his break even's 47,000. He's going to lose all his cash next week. He's got to go.
Yeah. And the final one, I'll go to Tim for this one. Just before we do that, Mark C did say Clayton Hall might be in this week. Well, again, that's one we can watch this week if he does come in, and potentially a rookie that we can downgrade to next week. And then Liam did say thoughts on Lafau. He scored 99, yes, but he scored, I think, 30s before that, under 20. So I wouldn't be looking at him.
He's better than Caulfield, though. He's better than Caulfield.
Yes, agreed. But yeah, this question was, and I've lost it. Where'd it go? Here we go. Tom Elliott's got this one. Tim, he said, thoughts on holding Colby McKercher and trading Ollie Dempsey in order to get Dacos instead of getting McRae or Caldwell. So this is probably one where are you happy to trade a Dempsey over McKercher to get Dacos in your side?
100%. Yeah. It's all about, it's you well and truly can. I mean, the term is kind of like getting off early. Not that I know that you necessarily. Well, you probably are with Dempsey getting off early, but if it's about the trade you get to, and once again, I think there's a couple of ways to think about this. I mean, half the teams in the comp have Dacos, so if he does go, so if you bring him in now, you make money, right? Because everyone else paid almost $1 million for him, and you pay 886 or whatever it is, right? So you make money. The other thing is that you also you now got safety in numbers, right? So if he does start to go spare, you're equaling up on the other half of the competition as well. Look, and Anzac Day as well. He could, I'm curious. I don't have Gorn, and I'm curious to see what happens with Maxi being VC for a lot of players. And, what happens if he goes a 110, 115 or something along those lines? And, then coaches are pretty much going to be trapped into taking that VC score. And then what if Dacos comes out the next day and, goes a 140, 150 or something along those lines? I'm fingers crossed and very much hoping for that to occur.
Yeah. Hot take, Dacos goes sub 80 this week. we'll see.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Bales.
It's
yeah, and Bails, if you had an extra 15k or whatever it was, what would that hot take be?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Suddenly, it's all
Oh, mate, you're reading my brain there. But yeah,
copium.
no,
This is
exactly right.
copium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe just trying to get him in next week. No, I think Dacos will go pretty well, to be fair. But you never know. As Roy and that like to say, maybe the sound of Durham might go to him a bit this week. But we'll have to see how that goes.
Who did he play against last week?
Who did you play? I've had a mental blank. Oh, Port.
He wasn't sending attention to Dawson that frequently last week.
I know, but yeah, Darren did match up for a little bit on Dawson, and Dawson scored a 155. So I'm hoping for the same kind of result this week.
Yeah. No, I'd say the more likely option is actually, like, this is a conversation I was having with Rids earlier, actually. It's if who of the Bombers could actually play a role on Dacos, and he's going to be one of the most important players of the week. I'd say that Jai Caldwell at stoppages is the most likely, and then it's I'd say it's most likely that if he's running off halfback, it's Nick Hind, and then there's a chance that Guelphy is back this week as well. Menzies is out injured. I don't believe he's going to be back. He's trying to, apparently, same for Guelphy, but Hindy played that role as that small pressure forward, and we've already seen that the Bombers are happy to have someone run with the best distributor off halfback in the early part of this season, because Guelphy went to Sicily, and then Menzies went to Nazaya in round 3. So there are options at the Bombers that could cap his ceiling. Now, I think that Dacos is built a little different with his speed, and that will cause some issues, but it's not Durham. Durham's going to Jordan to go at stoppages, I guarantee it.
Yep. Yeah, cool. No, I'm looking forward to that, being able to sit down and watch that game. So, but boys, we will cut it there. It's been a good chat as always. But
do you know what? Actually, just one shout out. You are going to sit down and enjoy that game, but we should let the people know that it's not just Anzac Day on Thursday, is it, Bales? It's a big day. It's a very special day because what is it, Bales?
Yeah, it's Anzac Day. It's a special day with
it's Bales' birthday. It's Bales' birthday.
Yes. We'll be turning 26. Looking forward to that. Hey, I've said that to Liam actually. On the bucket list is definitely Collingwood, Essendon on Anzac Day. Need to go to that game at some point in the near future. But no, looking forward to it. Yes. But thank you, Tim, for the shout out there. But boys, thank you very much for jumping on, Darren, mate. It's always a pleasure jumping on. I've had you twice in the space of about a week or so, mate. But do you want to let people know where they can find you and also where they can find your YouTube channel?
All right. So thank you again for obviously love for talking fantasy with you guys. It's always a great pleasure. But you can find me at Wise Ocean Pods on YouTube. I'm also on Spotify now, so you don't have to look at my ugly face. So yeah, that's where you can find me at.
Yes, but you can. I have put the links in the description below. So if you want to subscribe, then you can just click there, or as you said, find Wise Ocean Pods on YouTube or wherever you podcast. Liam, mate, as always, pleasure chatting to you. Obviously, we will be chatting to you on Sunday night as well for our round review, mate. But where can the people find you and the Free Kick Pod, and what can we be expecting over the next couple of months as you guys start to ramp up towards the AFLW season?
Yeah, look, thanks for having me on as Bails. I'm much like Darren. I love a chance to chat fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Liam AFLW Fantasy, and Free Kick can be found wherever you get your podcasts. Look, we're still in pre-season planning, hibernation mode. I'm, getting my podcast skills back up to speed after a bit of time out in the wilderness. I'd expect that you'll hear from us towards the beginning of the AFLW pre-season, which is the beginning of June, I believe. And then I'd expect we do a series every year called Clubs in Days, where we do an episode about every single club, and we have an interview for every single team as well. So you can expect to see that as well.
Beautiful. Now, looking forward to getting stuck into that. We do have still plenty of football, but hey, it's always good when we have football till the end of October. Tim, mate, obviously, I was always good to have you. Good to have you back on the pod as well. Good to hear you feeling a little bit better there. I know where people can find you at Tim Guest AU, but anything you wanted to quickly say to listeners? Obviously, we've got footy tomorrow night, so.
Yeah, look, obviously looking forward to. I love weeks like this. We've got just so much footy spread over so many days. I feel like I can just fit lots of games in and really take a bit of time off and enjoy myself. But apart from that, mate, I mean, I'm just sitting here considering how stoked and blown away I am. I get to be on pods with guys like Liam and guys like Darren. Expert coaches that really great insight, really great analysis. I think starting this pod was probably the best thing I could have ever done for my own team's performance, because I seem to be getting, now tailor-made advice from these guys. But yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah, I like how you didn't say me and the expert part of the
mate. We have always
on the top ranked coach of the podcast.
Sorry, mate. Well, I've always said that we're fanatics, not experts, mate. I think that gives us a little bit of room to make mistakes as well.
Yeah, I'm an expert in the making, but no. I'll have to see how we go. I need to win a Hilux or a hat first before I can start throwing that around. But boys, it's been a pleasure as always. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave a like on YouTube, subscribe as well if you haven't. Obviously, if you're listening back to the replay on Spotify or Apple, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. It'd be very much appreciated. And as well, extra thanks to those people that did tune in live and send in through their questions. And thanks to Corey and Power Prawn staff for their super chats as well. So thanks, guys, for that. We're back on Friday for our pre-lockout chat at the usual time of 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Western Standard Time. And then on Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern, I believe it. No, 7:30 Eastern, 5:30 Perth time. And we'll have Liam and another special guest jumping on there as well. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll catch you guys on Friday. So enjoy the footy. We're out. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Yeah.